If you've ever wondered why old cars seem to have so much more personality than the vehicles filling today's roads, you're about to discover one of the biggest reasons. There was a time when simply turning on your headlights felt like watching a machine come alive. Hidden panels moved, covers swung open, and entire front ends transformed right before your eyes. It wasn't just about seeing the road at night. It was about drama, style, and making a statement. By the end of this video, you'll understand why hidden headlights became one of the coolest trends in automotive history, how some of the most iconic American cars used them, and why something so loved eventually disappeared. Take a look around at modern cars after dark. Most of them blend together. Thin LED strips, sharp light signatures, and glowing bars stretching across the front. They're efficient and technologically impressive, but they rarely surprise you. Decades ago, things were very different. Automakers were obsessed with creating excitement, and hidden headlights became one of the most memorable ways to do it. The moment those lights appeared from behind panels or doors, a car suddenly felt futuristic, almost alive. To understand how this idea began, we need to travel all the way back to 1936. That's when the Cord 810 arrived and completely shocked the automotive world. Even by modern standards, the car looked advanced. Its designers wanted a front end that appeared smooth and uninterrupted. They didn't want large headlights ruining the shape they had worked so hard to create. Their solution was unlike anything most people had ever seen. Instead of leaving the headlights exposed, they concealed them inside the front fenders. When drivers needed light, they couldn't simply flip a switch and watch them rise. The process was far more mechanical. Small cranks mounted inside the cabin were connected through cables and pulleys. Drivers actually had to turn these cranks by hand to raise the headlights into position. It wasn't convenient, it wasn't particularly practical, but it was unforgettable. Watching those lights emerge from the bodywork felt like seeing a glimpse of the future. Despite the excitement surrounding the Cord, hidden headlights didn't immediately become common. The systems were expensive, complicated, and difficult to justify on mass-market vehicles. For years, the idea mostly appeared on concept cars and experimental designs. One of the most famous examples came from General Motors designer Harley Earl. In 1938, he created a concept known as the Y-Job, often considered one of America's first true concept cars. The Y-Job featured headlights concealed behind panels that opened in a way that resembled eyelids. When activated, the covers lifted smoothly, giving the car an almost human expression. It was a brilliant design idea and perfectly demonstrated how hidden headlights could add emotion to a vehicle. Still, the technology remained largely confined to dream cars for many years. Everything began changing during the early 1960s. Automakers were searching for new ways to make their cars stand out, and hidden headlights suddenly offered the perfect opportunity. Designers had spent years dealing with large federally required round sealed beam headlights. Those units worked fine, but they often ruined sleek styling ideas. If a designer wanted a low and elegant front end, those big round lamps became a constant obstacle. Many designers felt trapped by those regulations. Hiding the headlights became the simplest way to preserve the clean lines they envisioned. At the same time, competition among manufacturers was becoming increasingly fierce. Every company wanted buyers to stop and stare at their vehicles. Hidden headlights delivered exactly that kind of showroom impact. A customer could spot the difference from across a parking lot. Among all the American cars that embraced hidden headlights, few executed the idea as beautifully as the 1965 Buick Riviera. The Riviera had already established itself as Buick's stylish personal luxury coupe, created to compete with the Thunderbird. But the 1965 model elevated the design to another level. GM design leader Bill Mitchell had a clear vision for the Riviera. He wanted a sophisticated grand touring car with clean proportions and a refined appearance. The hidden headlights weren't an afterthought. They were central to the entire design philosophy. The 1965 Riviera used a unique setup featuring vertically stacked headlights concealed behind clamshell-style covers. These covers didn't simply flip upward. Instead, they moved outward and downward in a graceful motion powered by electric motors. Watching them operate felt almost theatrical. The movement appeared deliberate and elegant, perfectly matching the character of the car itself. When the headlights were turned off, the front end looked incredibly smooth. Nothing interrupted the flowing design. The hidden mechanism allowed the entire nose of the vehicle to appear as one unified shape. It was one of those rare moments when engineering and styling worked together perfectly. What makes the 1965 Riviera even more remarkable is its rarity. This particular clamshell arrangement existed for only a single model year. Afterward, Buick adopted different designs that were easier to manage and manufacture. Later systems remained functional, but they never achieved the same visual harmony. By 1970, the Riviera abandoned hidden headlights completely. The reasons were understandable. Systems like these required motors, mechanisms, and various moving parts that eventually wore out. A malfunction wasn't merely inconvenient. If the lights failed to open properly at night, safety became a serious concern. Yet despite those drawbacks, enthusiasts continue to admire the 1965 Riviera because it represents one of the purest expressions of hidden headlight design ever created. If the Riviera represented elegance, the next car embodied something entirely different. The 1968 Dodge Charger transformed hidden headlights into a symbol of aggression. When the second-generation Charger debuted, it immediately stood apart from nearly everything else on the road. Its muscular shape, dramatic roofline, and distinctive proportions created an unmistakable presence. Hidden headlights played a huge role in that identity. Dodge concealed 4 headlights behind a full-width black grille stretching across the front of the car. With the lights closed, the Charger appeared intimidating. The entire front end looked dark, seamless, and purposeful. There were no obvious lamps disrupting the design. When the headlights were activated, vacuum-operated doors swung open to reveal the lamps hidden behind the grille. The system relied on engine vacuum stored in a canister and distributed through a network of hoses and mechanisms. It was clever engineering for its time, but it wasn't perfect. Vacuum systems depend heavily on maintaining proper pressure. Performance modifications could reduce available vacuum, causing slower operation. As the cars aged, small leaks often developed throughout the system. Owners frequently encountered situations where one headlight door opened correctly, while the other lagged behind or refused to move entirely. This phenomenon became so common that enthusiasts gave it a nickname, the wink. Seeing a Charger with one eye open and one eye closed became a familiar sight among aging examples. Recognizing the limitations, Dodge eventually switched to electric actuators for the 1970 model year. The newer system provided more consistent operation. Even so, hidden headlights eventually disappeared from the Charger lineup. Yet during its peak years, they were an essential part of what made the car legendary. Think about the famous movie chase scenes featuring a black Charger tearing through city streets. That sinister appearance wasn't created by horsepower alone. The hidden headlights contributed significantly to the car's intimidating personality. Without them, the front end would have felt entirely different. The Corvette approached hidden headlights from another angle. Unlike the Riviera and Charger, where the feature primarily enhanced styling, the Corvette used hidden headlights to solve a practical engineering challenge. When Chevrolet introduced the C3 Corvette in 1968, the car featured an extremely low and aerodynamic nose. Designers wanted a shape that looked fast, even while standing still. The problem was federal regulations requiring headlights to sit at a certain height above the ground. Fixed headlights would have forced designers to compromise the sleek front-end shape. Instead, engineers developed a system that allowed the headlights to remain hidden beneath the bodywork until needed. When activated, the headlights rotated upward into position, satisfying legal requirements while preserving the low-profile design. When turned off, they disappeared completely, leaving behind a smooth and uninterrupted surface. Early C3 Corvettes relied on vacuum-operated mechanisms. Predictably, they experienced many of the same reliability challenges seen in other vacuum-based systems. Leaks became common over time, creating headaches for owners trying to keep everything functioning correctly. Fortunately, Chevrolet eventually moved toward electric operation, which improved reliability considerably. The experience remained magical. Owners often describe the distinctive sound of the headlights rising and lowering as one of the most memorable aspects of Corvette ownership. The Corvette continued using hidden headlights through multiple generations. In fact, the feature remained part of the Corvette identity all the way until the end of the C5 generation in 2004. That represents an extraordinary 36-year run, longer than any other American nameplate maintained hidden headlights. With so many people loving hidden headlights, why did they eventually disappear? The answer comes down to several factors arriving at roughly the same time. Reliability was one major issue. Whether powered by vacuum or electricity, hidden headlight systems involved numerous components. Various supporting parts all had to work together perfectly. As vehicles aged, failures became increasingly common. Manufacturers striving to reduce warranty claims and improve long-term dependability saw these systems as unnecessary complications. During the early 2000s, pedestrian protection standards became increasingly important, particularly in Europe. Vehicle front ends were expected to absorb impact energy more effectively during collisions involving pedestrians. Pop-up and hidden headlight assemblies presented challenges in this area. Raised housings created rigid structures that could increase injury risks. Designing compliant versions would have required substantial engineering investment. Yet despite all the practical reasons for their disappearance, hidden headlights continue to capture people's imagination. These systems transformed a simple action into an experience. Remove the hidden headlights from those vehicles and you fundamentally change their personalities. The entire front-end designs were built around the concept. The feature wasn't merely decoration, it was part of the identity. That's why these cars continue turning heads decades later. It's not only because they're powerful or collectible. It's because they represent a time when automakers were willing to spend money and engineering effort on something that served the heart as much as the practical needs of transportation. They weren't just lights. They were a performance. They transformed ordinary moments into memorable ones. And even now, decades after most manufacturers abandoned them, people still stop and watch whenever those concealed lamps slowly come to life.